Hi, I'm Susan Bearden here at the IBM Insight Conference with Richard Groats from IBM. Richard, can you please share with our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do with IBM?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me. My name is Richard Groats. I am the program director for Watson Academic Engagement. So what I focus on is ensuring that cognitive technology, Watson, is taught within universities, within curriculum, but that we also engage with faculty and students to foster an entrepreneurial spirit, also get students thinking about what applications can I create with cognitive, and in some cases become their own businesses, their own startups.
Can you explain a little bit to our audience, because we may have educators who are not familiar with the term cognitive computing. Can you explain exactly what cognitive computing is?
Great question. So get that quite a bit, as I'm sure you can imagine. So cognitive computing really is an evolution of how we as humans engage with data. So the whole reason for cognitive computing is there is such an explosion of data, and you can go Google tons of metrics as to how data has increased exponentially, but specifically the data that humans create, that you and I create, that's for consumption for other humans, is just gone exponentially. You talked about Twitter in a conversation earlier. Tweets, how we feel about things, just unstructured data, anything that can't be put in a spreadsheet. It's not ones and zeros. It's written text, it's video, it's pictures. All of these things up to now have been dark to computers. So the whole point of cognitive technology is taking all of that data, all of that information, and putting it into a system that we can then interact with. What cognitive, Watson specifically, is really unique for is it incorporates natural language processing. Watson talks like you and I. Watson understands idioms. Watson can understand context. I feel blue can be incorporated into a computer now, whereas before it couldn't. What does that mean? So the fact that we can now take all of that data and distill it and actually make decisions based upon it, or use the wisdom of masses if we have, say, a lot of papers about a certain subject, we can now all become resident experts because Watson has correlated all of that data.
And what do you see as the future of IBM Watson in K-12 education? I know we were talking a little bit earlier about your work in higher ed, and if you could talk a little bit about that and then how you see that extending into K-12.
Absolutely. So I think the role of K-12 is absolutely imperative as we look at not just cognitive technologies, but all technology moving forward, because as we talked about earlier, while these are absolutely essential skills to be taught in higher education and within universities, we need to reach students earlier. We see so many students, and you had some great examples earlier of students that are creating their own apps. We have our research department that's working with a high school in Austin, Texas, that is actually pairing a version of Watson in Minecraft. So you have an advisor that you're talking to as you're in a Minecraft game, and these are all the students doing it. So the pervasiveness of technology has been around for quite some time, but the fact that we now have students that can, at a very young age, take this technology and make it into so much is phenomenal. I think what we want to do now is make sure that we have that communication. We start building that focus and those skills earlier. So from a Watson perspective, a cognitive perspective, we very much want to work with K-12 organizations as well as not-for-profits when it comes to STEM to start we'll say exposing these students to this technology at an earlier age. For no other reason, we want to see what they do with it. We want to learn from them as much as we want to teach the technology.
Well, that's fascinating. It sounds like cognitive computing opens up all sorts of interesting possibilities that weren't previously available using traditional educational means.
It truly does. Truly, the limitless opportunities here, and we're very excited to see what we find out.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking time to sit with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Susan Bearden, and we're live here at IBM Insight.